introductions. So that should be recording. So Steve, if you want to introduce yourself, and I'll hand over to you.
Morning, thanks Becky. I'm Steve Brown. I'm Head of Corporate Services at Bassetlaw District Council. So thanks everyone for joining this morning. It's for those of you who are relatively new to the Winter Conversations, which obviously hosted through BCVS and chaired by Becky. It's a bit of try and have a sort of early warning system really of key partners across the place about what's happening in terms of originally set up obviously for winter related issues, but now very much focused on the cost of living impacts, which obviously exacerbate those pressures as well. So it's an opportunity to get feedback from partners on the ground as to what they're seeing, what the pressures are that they're facing, both from their clients, but also as organisations. What we do know, and I suspect Karen will give us a little bit more information, we know that the price cap is due to rise by 5% in January. So again, energy bills will continue to be extremely high for people. And I know we were on a meeting yesterday and Karen's got some examples of the kind of costs, average types of costs that people are going to be facing. The third and final cost of living payment to £300 is due to be made early in the new year as well. That was recently announced when those payments were made. They should be automatic payments coming through. Just from a district council point of view, I know they shall be shared by partners. We're seeing considerable demand. Doesn't seem to stop in terms of the pressures that we're seeing, but also the nature of those pressures. They're not single issues now. They tend to be very complex and cut across a lot of issues, and there is what I would say a growing prevalence of mental health pressures behind a lot of this as well. So that's just a bit of a scene setter from myself, Becky, and sort of I know we've got specific items on the agenda in terms of the general situation and then some of the initiatives that are currently taking place in Bassetlaw.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, so I did put out a quite a short agenda that was attached to this meeting invite that hopefully you'll have seen. Only a few items on it that we tend to pick up and cover regularly, and the first of which is warm spaces, and that is really just a flag with you. I know many organisations on the call are already operating as a warm space. We've got 20 at the moment that are logged as available on our website, 6 in Retford, 10 in Worksop, and then there's 2 in Langord and 2 in Tuxford. Langord and Tuxford are the only village ones that are showing us logged on the website. There may be other groups obviously operating there, still running coffee mornings and events that are not necessarily flagging themselves as warm spaces. But please do look through on the website if you are anybody you're working with that is looking for somewhere to go, somewhere to have as a warm space. So it's really good, and thanks to all for continuing to provide those for the population. Excuse me. Anybody want to add anything about warm spaces?
Becky, I can just add that again, take-up's been really slow so far. I don't know if that's the position across all warm spaces, but we certainly didn't get the engagement that we expected last year. And again, so far this year, we haven't had a flood of people queuing at the door.
Thanks, Lynn. Angie?
Yeah, just to reiterate really from Lynn, we haven't had much uptake at the Kilton Forest Golf Course, but just to highlight, it is open. There's only Christmas Day, I believe, that we're actually closed. So as a warm space, it will be open during the day if it does help with direction of anybody who's struggling to find somewhere warm just to sit and have a drink. It will be open through the holidays apart from Christmas Day, I believe.
That's good to know. Thanks, Ange. Okay, warm packs is the next point on our agenda, and I know the Action Centre did a big amount of work to put a bid in to try and get a chunk of, I thought it was lottery funding, wasn't it, Lynn, to try and have a really high number of packs. Unfortunately, well, I'll let you pick up on that then, as it was your piece of work, if that's okay.
Thank you. Yes, disappointing that we didn't get the lottery bid, but we have got some resource this year to issue warm packs, thanks to colleagues at District Council, Steve in particular. We are being a little bit more, not ruthless exactly, but we are really double checking with referrals that they're going to the right people, and actually that the packs consist of equipment that is going to be used, because we have had some feedback that if people have requested a warm pack, they might have been issued with a full pack, but then have got no intention of plugging anything in because they can't afford their electric anyway, so which brings a different set of circumstances. And initially, the idea of the warm pack was about preventing winter deaths amongst our older population, and we've had quite a lot of referrals that aren't necessarily from those people, from that category. So again, we've really had to question. And then colleagues at BCVS, and I don't believe Becky's going to take the glory for a bit, she could because Andrea's not here, suggested that we actually looked at what a warm pack consists of, so that we can make the limited resource that we've got this year go a little bit further. So there's a little bit more work involved, because we really are checking with people what exactly they do need and only issuing what they actually need to help them, just to make the resource go as far as possible this year. Colleagues at District Council have also sent out a plea to a lot of their suppliers, who are also coming back with monetary donations to enable us to buy additional packs. It's nothing like the value that the lottery would have brought had we been successful with that, but every little helps, as they say.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks for the update. Do you know how many people it's likely to support, or is it difficult to say because of the nature now of kind of splitting up what's going out?
Yeah, it's really difficult to say. I mean, we issued 150 packs last year before we ran out of stocks. I don't think we're going to be anything like that number, but it really is difficult to say, because if if people only want one electric radiator instead of two, it's giving us two interventions instead of one. So, but it really is, it's about getting the right level of help to people that need it most, whatever that looks like. But we will be spreading it as far and wide as possible.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions for Lynn around warm packs, or any comments? No? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, if I could just say, obviously, Lynn, we know from last year how that, when we had that cold snap, it only lasted, I think, about a week in December last year, but we know the demand that you that resulted from that upon yourselves. So obviously we'll just have to keep a watching brief, but the difficulty is always the lead time in getting the supply as well, isn't it? Not in addition to finding any additional funding to support that.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted me to pick any warm packs and distribute them when I'm doing my rounds today and for the rest of next week. And I'm calling in at BCVS to get some bookmarks and a few cost of living booklets to hand out at some of the warm spaces and food hubs I'm visiting. I don't know if you'd like me to do that for you, Lynn.
Oh, thanks for the offer, Daniel. I mean, I think at the minute we've got everything covered. Thankfully, it's not sub-zero out there, so that's when we tend to see a spike. And I know that we've had other offers of help. I think at the minute, what we were conscious of last year is some of the people that were having a full warm pack were asking for them in case they needed them. And we've really got to be very careful that we're not just issuing them for the in case. It's really for those people that need them the very most, and even then, what exactly we're issuing. So it's not as easy as to say, here's half a dozen, drop them off with people that might like one.
Right, I see.
Sadly.
Yeah. Just checking, yeah.
Thank you, and thanks, Dan.
No worries.
Any more on warm packs? No, and I think on behalf of all of us, thank you, Lynn, for coordinating and doing that piece of work, because it is so valuable for when we work, the people that we're working with, for us to know that there is that potential support for them. The next point on our agenda is around communications. Steve, you left this on, and I have to admit, when I looked at it this morning, I was thinking, I don't. What communication?
Oh, excuse me. So obviously, I think as Dan's just mentioned, we have the revised cost of living booklet that's been obviously updated for this year. There's, I think from memory, 7,000 of those have been printed, 6,500 have been distributed, 11,000 bookmarks that have been done. They're ready to go. There is, and I mentioned it yesterday, a national awareness week in mid-January about heating, of National Energy Week or something. I've forgotten the actual title now off the top of my head. Somebody will remind me. So Rachel Wood is looking at some sort of joint comms around that to promote awareness of those initiatives as well. So a lot going on, obviously. Just trying to promote awareness of the services, of the pressures, and see regular, although I'm not a great user of social media, I certainly see regular updates from the food bank and other colleagues in terms of what's going on. Loads of donations coming through your door, Robert, so that's all positive, but it is about raising people's awareness. The need for volunteers, the need for practical support, but also making people aware of where to signpost people to. So comms is essential behind everything that we do. Thanks, Becky.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, so it's just kind of the broader connectivity and coming together. Helen.
Thanks, Becky. Can I just add to that, Steve? I'm literally, just as we're speaking, writing an email to Rachel. So she's put together a draft of services that are available over the bank holiday closures, and there'll be an ask going out to colleagues to share that on social media platforms, digital screens, if you have those on the run up to, and then obviously on social media channels during the bank holidays, just reinforcing services that are still open, and then kind of self-help and emergency crisis lines for when that goes. I just thought that'd be useful to share.
Thanks, Helen. And that does remind me, actually, and I'll flag it now, around pharmacists. We know that that's gone out a number of times, and hopefully everybody will have seen that now, that the pharmacies that are open over the break are workshop pharmacies, I think, still, aren't they, Helen? And I know there've been conversations around support to get people those meds. I don't know if there's any update on what's happening with anybody who needs emergency prescriptions and isn't able to get to workshop. Was there anything put in place?
Also, on the subject of food banks and the warm spaces as well, I found it really useful going around this last month and just seeing, because it's been a bit scattergraph really in terms of which food banks and which warm spaces are really well attended. But like Now Church, for example, in Langgold, and I went to a place in Carlton Lindrick, their primary school, where they had a food bank, and been to a couple of social eating events. And some of these are kind of really good community hubs for us to use moving forward. They're really well attended. I was really quite surprised really how effective some of them were and how many people go to these places. So it's been really useful for us as an organisation just to kind of touch bases with these kind of places in local communities.
We are very fortunate in Bassetlaw that we've got a number of different initiatives, including food bank with the site and the deliveries. Robert's got a community, I don't know what you call it, I can't think what you call it, the shop, community shop, that's the one, that goes out into the villages. And I remember you saying on a meeting recently, Robert, that almost where that shop goes, you've seen that there'd been a drop in the demand for parcels because people were accessing those community shops, which is really interesting and really positive. And then there are the food hubs, which are the fair share food that comes through that people can buy back. So there are a number of different initiatives. And one thing Andrew had flagged with me and asked me to share was that we're going to do some work over December and January at BCVS, collating the latest info on food hubs and other food insecurity support for VCSE colleagues, so that we can support where the need is, because we know that some of that provision has been term time only, and that has caused challenges, and I'm sure that causes spikes in Robert's demand as well when those aren't available. So it's getting the balance right. Simon, did you want to come in? You're on mute, Simon.
There we go. There's my deliberate mistake for today. Sorry. Yeah, it was just reinforcing what you were saying, Becky, about Basildore being quite lucky. Because I see it from a county's perspective, from my colleagues, district prevention officers. We hold a stock of district council provided food parcels at each station that we send, that district councils will contact control and say we've got an out of hours food parcel delivery to be made, and the crews will go out and deliver it and do a home safe and well while they're at it as well. And Basildore, we don't seem to deliver many at all in comparison with Mansfield and Ashfield, who are just, they can't get enough of them. They're getting rid of them. I'm quite often having to take things over to Mansfield and Ashfield so they can use our food parcels before they're restocked. So yeah, definitely that's reflective on what I'm seeing. But likewise, bear in mind that we do have a stock of food parcels on most stations for those if someone's in dire need. Okay.
That's good to know, actually, over the Christmas period as well. You know, when other services obviously are not perhaps there. I guess the is Retford, is it part-time manning or full whole-time
Yeah,
manning?
but it's Retford is well, it's both. It's mixed. It's the only one now that's got whole-time staffing during until 7 o'clock at night, and then it's on-call staffing after that. But we do hold food parcels here. And it works up. So, you know, if crews go out somewhere, they can, you know, spontaneously, if someone's in need, then they'll take them a parcel out. But generally, they belong to the district council, and the instruction should come from a district council.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Lynn, did you want to come in?
Yeah, please. That's interesting, Simon. Is it just at Retford and Worksop?
Yes.
Is there any at Harworth?
No.
Right.
Just Retford and Worksop, the two main
yeah.
stations in Basildore.
Lovely, thank you. I mean, I think it's partly because we are well provided for. However, I do wonder if we can do some comms out to councillors who often get the out of hours calls and are then scrambling around looking for a food pack. So if we can possibly put together some comms for councillors, Steve, so that they've got kind of a go-to list, especially over the Christmas period and the cold months that will hit us probably in January. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. And thanks for giving that to Steve. Anybody else want to come in on around food provision? Lynn?
Yeah, Becky, I just put a question in the chat asking if someone did need the emergency food parcel from fire and rescue colleagues, how to access that. Surely we don't dial 999 and say, can you bring a parcel with you when you go?
No, that's a good question, but it's something that comes from the district council. They contact our control, so it's not something that we'd do independently unless we'd been to an incident and we saw something that was occurring and somebody in need. Generally, it would be a communication from district council to say, out of hours, please, can you take this parcel out? We wouldn't be accepting a call to take a parcel out from independently because they don't belong to us. They belong to the council, I'm afraid.
Is that just through the normal switchboard at the council then, Steve?
Well, that raises the interesting point, because from a council perspective, we're closed most of Christmas and the New Year, so I probably just need to look at how we could facilitate that during that period. But we've got an out of hours number, so I think it's just them having the arrangement, so it's, you know, it's not insurmountable at all.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
Yeah, I might be able to fix these problems. So we operate same hours as the district council, mainly because they answer the phones for us, which is just amazing. But we are providing emergency cover during the close down over Christmas, because we're very conscious it's a 4-day shutdown. So our comms will be going out next week, and we'll be using our mobile number. So we're providing emergency cover. So previously that has been calls from district councillors, as Lynn referred to, fire, ambulance and police. We do get some calls from individuals who have a different perception on emergencies. I had one last year on Christmas Day from a gentleman who didn't even know it was Christmas Day, which was an interesting conversation. But we will have a voicemail service. If somebody leaves a message with details, contact details for an emergency, we'll get back to them within 2 hours. And then based on the situation, we can provide a parcel within another 2 hours. So just to give some context on the number of calls that we received last year, we had 3 out of hours calls over the Christmas and New Year shutdown, and the previous year I think it was 4. So there is a small demand and we're comfortable covering it. So again, there will be comms out and on our website if you want details, if you're in a situation we need to do an emergency referral for the mobile number that will be on. If anybody's got any specific questions about it, just drop us an email. Just to give an update on the food bank, as was alluded to, the community shop is being extremely well used. We are serving approximately 350 clients a week from the 10 villages we visit. The fruit and veg box scheme has been increased to 100 households across the district now. I think we still have space for another 8 or 9 families. Again, easy referral process, just visit the website. There's an online form to complete. And emergency food parcels, we have seen a seasonal uptick at the back end of November and into December, which isn't a huge shock for our world. We're servicing approximately 200 clients a week at the moment with a 7-day emergency food parcel. Most common causes for people needing that support, short-term emergency support, is contract changes. So at this time we see a big drop-off in 0-hour contract hours for workers, and we started to see those filtering through the system where their factories are obviously sort of slowing down in the run-up to Christmas. They're losing hours, they're getting a universal claim in, they've got a 5-week delay for money. Energy, which is a bit of a tailwind on that cold snap we had, where people got through a lot of money using energy as well. And then the other one is families who are just feeling the pressure at this time of year, trying to balance Christmas, children, living, feeding, just all of the rubbish life chucks at us, really. So yeah, just quick update on what's going on in the food bank. I hope that's enough. Probably too much, sorry.
That's great. Thanks, Robert, and thanks for the info around the Christmas cover as well. That's really good to know. Lynn, over to you.
It's really a direct question to Robert that we might want to take outside of the meeting, but I just wondered, Robert, if you would be happy to have some of the warm pack equipment available for the emergency 4 days as well.
Yeah, there's no problem. I have
discretion.
made that absolutely no problem.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
just let us know and we'll pick it up and hold it.
I'll pick it up
and then drop
outside
it.
the meeting then, but that would just
Yeah,
then
yeah.
be to colleagues on today's call to be aware of the fact that over the 4 days the emergency would be in place through yourselves.
Yeah. Do you think we should have an emergency malt whiskey helpline? I'm happy to take all the stock for that as well, if that's useful to anybody. Just a thought.
I don't really like whiskey, Robert, but we could come to some arrangement with other sources of nourishment.
Luckily, I like whiskey, so no problem.
Okay.
Can you put that number in the chat, please, Robert, for the whiskey line? I'd like that.
Don't let's not go down this route. Come on. Okay, I think we've kind of come into local organisational issues and concerns. So I'll open the floor up really to anybody that wants to share any issues that they've identified locally, any updates, any information that would benefit those in the group to hear, to understand.
I just wonder if it'd be a good idea to start with Karen for give an overview from the CAB, both sort of the national and local sort of situations and challenges that we're likely to see.
Well, I wasn't going to throw her under the bus, Steve, but
yeah, but you can rely on me.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks both.
I was still thinking about the whiskey thing. No, thanks for that. So apologies, because some of this was covered, and I know that there's a few people that were on the call yesterday, but I have added some other bits just to kind of bring some other things to light there. So you can listen to some other things. I'll try and keep it brief. So I was hoping to actually share some figures from, there's a cost of living briefing that National Citizens Advice do on a monthly basis. I know some of you have probably seen those. They're not just for Citizens Advice people, they're for anybody. And I'll share the link of the November one, which there's just some odd bits that I've pulled off from there that I thought I'd share with you. And then what I can do is circulate the one for December when that comes through. It's normally, there's a bit of a delay with it, so you can't always pull it off straight away, but it lasts for about an hour. It's really interesting. It focuses on national stats, but a lot of what we're seeing in Basset Law is mirrored with what is happening nationally as well, although there are obviously some locality differences as well. And within that, it's got an interactive section on some of the graphs, so you can actually click in and look at certain years and look at different areas and districts as well. So it is quite useful to nail it down to that. So a couple of things that we're concerned about over the next kind of period is certainly fuel poverty, and also the impact of process and delays in health-related welfare benefits. So I'll just whiz through some of the stats that were shared yesterday. So in 2022, 13.5% of the households in the UK, so this is not just a local one, were considered in fuel poverty by January 23, that the figure had risen to 20% on that one. There's an article from the British Medical Association, a chilling effect it's called, which was issued in 2022, and there was a query yesterday about it, which I'm glad that was raised, because I wasn't very clear with it yesterday, but it was talking about some stats that they were reporting for in 2020 to 2021, where it was talking about the number of excess deaths that had been caused because of the cold. And actually it was quite interesting because the most deaths that occur are for people who have Alzheimer's or dementia as a highest death disease, not death disease, sorry, that doesn't sound right, cause of death, as opposed to things that we would probably think would be stroke or cancer or heart attacks or those kind of really quite prominent health conditions as well. But certainly there is the winter deaths are things that should be able to be avoided, and that's because people should be able to keep warm and dry in their homes as well. So energy prices due to go up by an average of about 5% in January 2024. So we don't know what's going to happen after March. And there was, just to give you some figures on that, so the energy price cap, the typical electricity and gas will pay just under 2,000 a year if they pay by direct debits. That was 1,928. 2,058 if they pay by a standard credit, which is on the receipt of the bill, and then 1,960 if they are on a prepayment meter. So sadly, prepayment meters are one of the highest ways, that they charge people as well, and they have to put the money in the meter to be able to get the gas or the electricity through that. So that is obviously a real concern, because there's 3 groups of energy customers that are most in need of advice around that. So those who use the traditional prepayment meters, people who could be helped by something called the Priority Service Register, which means that people can come and read their meter for them, and people that are looking for support around their energy bills. So if people are waiting for a PIP, which is Personal Independence Payment Benefit, which is something to support with health issues, or something called attendance allowance if they're over pensionable age, and their current income is negative budget, we call it, which means that their income is lower than their essential bills. And when we talk about essential bills, we talk about their heating, but also things like council tax, rent, mortgage, alongside all the other things that are affected. Surprisingly, TV license is also a priority bill, and water rates is also a priority bill as well, because that's where people can be cut off if they don't pay those bills or they have a fine, and that's why we call them priority bills. So the scheme that was introduced by national government, the Energy Bill Support Scheme, doesn't exist any longer, which means that where there was a payment of £400, that's not something that will apply to people this winter. And just to give you an idea of locally, so our energy team in this financial year have already supported over 500 clients, and cases are becoming more and more complex. So what that means is we're seeing that they've got fuel bills, but the fuel bills that they've got are actually higher than what they've had before. So they're owing more money on that. And also where people are not just in fuel poverty, but it's in fuel crisis, which is what Robert mentioned earlier. So there's a definite correlation there between people needing those extra warm packs, those extra food parcels, that household support fund, all those extra measures that are in place, which is good that they are in place, but people are relying on those much, much more as well. So just to pull out some of the things from the briefing, it's not something I can show on the screen because often it doesn't work when you put it in with the Microsoft Teams, so I can't give you screenshots of certain things, but we're seeing there that the people who are unable to top up their prepayment meter, and this is on a national basis, we're already ahead of where we were last year, and that's not just by a small amount, that's by a large amount, it's by a long way. And actually when you compare that to last year, that was the biggest year that had ever been done previously on prepayment meters. Nationally in 2023, there's been 31,000 people who have sought the advice of Citizens Advice because they can't afford to basically switch on the lights or the heating on. And the peak was actually in December last year, but we've been rising quite rapidly on that. There's been a cold and a wet snap quite recently. So the roundup reflects up to about October. So we're a little bit worried about this harsher weather that may come. And as was discussed in the meeting yesterday, the flooding is causing a lot of problems again for a lot of people. So that's something that hopefully, you know, we won't have worse effects of that as well. Thinking about debt as well. So the clients that we see around debt has predominantly been around things like council tax, but now fuel is the highest issue that people are coming in about there as well. And linked to that as well, there's a number of people around water bills. So obviously our area is generally Severn Trent. There's a really good scheme that we help people with to reduce their water bills. It's a fairly easy process that we can do quite quickly, so it can reduce their water bills to around something like £30 a year instead of the full cost of their water bills if they're eligible for it. So if you've got any people presenting with issues there, please send them our way as well there. 63% of people that have got debts have got water bill debts as well. And also we're seeing that around 27% of PIP clients, that's personal independent clients, people with health conditions, will often come to us about housing benefit problems as well. And again, when we look at the negative budgets, what we're seeing there is that more people are coming in around more issues. So that's probably where it was a couple of issues, it's now 3 or 4 issues per thing that they come in about. And also the demographics of those people is mainly around single parents and also single adult households are the people that are most likely to be in a negative budget. So really, just to summarise, we're worried about the rising costs, we're worried about the impacts of health that the next winter may bring. Preventative work is so effective. I think that's the message. We all work so well together in Bassetlaw together. So I think if using all those resources that we have and sharing those resources and trying to really get it so that people are where they might be in a bit of a problem, a bit of a pickle before it gets too bad, because it really quickly escalates. And then that's what makes it a bigger person, and it's encouraging people to get that help and support that they need from all of us. Whatever their problem is the way that it can really make a difference as well. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Anybody got any questions for Karen? No?
Excellent.
Very good. Covered it
Thank
all
you.
thoroughly. The point I think you raised at the end, Karen, around that early intervention, getting to people early, you know, before it really deepens, especially with debt issues and non-payment issues, is so important. So it I guess for all of us in all of our organisations, it's that responsibility of asking the questions and making sure that we use the networks that we have in Bassetlaw that are so strong to pass on the referrals and make sure that people get the support, because we do have it. Lovely, thank you very much. Any other organisations would like to give an update? Helen?
Thanks, Becky. Apologies. I don't know what my Teams is doing. It wouldn't let me put my hand up earlier. Just to follow on, Karen, from that again, and I know I have heard that a couple of times, but I'm a bit of a reflector. So I think, you know, each time I hear it, I'm able to reflect on it more and more. And it is really powerful information and statistics that you're sharing that really paint an accurate negative picture for us in Bassetlaw and of course nationally as well. Just to say, we had a conversation with Chris from Citizens Advice at our Adult Mental Health Alliance meeting last week, and had agreed that we'd be exploring doing some proactive comms around messaging in terms of prepayment meters. Do people understand the difference in the increased costs? And I appreciate comms, particularly on social media, doesn't, you know, reach everybody, but it's just something that we can do, isn't it, collectively? And again, it's about reinforcing and sharing those messages and hopefully supporting people before they reach crisis point. So I just thought that was useful to share.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, we're going to work on that, because what we want to do, we're working on getting some of the impact figures more locally, which we'll be able to get once this other document is released. So Chris and I will be working on that. Just as well, we've put something on social media that's just reminded me, thank you, Helen, around some free training. We've got some funding for a regional energy lead, which is up till the end of March. So that's one of our energy advisors, Trev is called. So he's happy to come and do some free training to frontline advisors if anybody would like that for their teams. And he's also doing that to some of the community groups as well. So it's just to try and spread the word a little bit. Again, that preventative action as much as possible. So just contact us if there's anything you need. Yeah.
Thanks, Karen. Chef's coming in here, I think, on the 10th of Jan and doing a session for us. So we're really appreciative of that piece of work. Anybody else, either questions for Karen or any organisations like to share anything or give any further update?
Becky, I've stuck something in the chat just around, and I know this isn't around poverty and everything. It's just that here we are with our Christmas message from the fire service once again. Just to put in perspective, we had the Christmas decorations up, and everyone seems to have new log burners and everything going on now. We've had a few log burner fires because chimneys haven't been swept properly, but also we've had radiated heat. One particularly at Tuxford last week. They put the nice house, nice new log burner, put the Christmas decorations up everywhere. The radiated heat from the log burner set the Christmas decorations on fire, which set the whole lounge on fire. And the only thing that saved the family, and this is the moral, is the fact that the smoke alarms in the property alerted the family to the fact that the lounge was on fire. They were able to get out safely and call 999. So I've put that little bit in the chat about our keeping safe at Christmas around the electricals and the fire and the festivities and everything that goes with it. So that'd be it. If you wouldn't mind having a quick glance at that and sharing it if you possibly can, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. That's scary stuff.
Get your smoke alarms. Test it Tuesday every day.
Thank you. Anybody else want to give any information or update? Lydia.
Thanks. I couldn't see my hand up, so I didn't know if it was up, but I'm glad you saw it. Yeah, just to say from myself and the two other neighbourhood coordinators, we you probably know anyway, we sort of offer county-wide cost of living sort of events and support sessions there, and if there's we're happy to work with any partners if you want us to help sort of facilitate that. We actually did one yesterday in Balderton in Newark. And we had, rather than actually a standalone event for cost of living, it was tagged on to a Macmillan Coffee Morning. So we had the providers there within the coffee morning, which was quite good because we knew we'd sort of have a footfall of people there, and we were able to put sort of the winter warm winter booklets, the winter wise booklets, sorry, the Notts County Council ones on the tables, and the cost of living leaflets again to kind of keep getting that information out there. So it's just to say that the office there if you want us to get involved with that at all. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. So is your role around the cost of living side of promoting work?
It's been a sort of, yeah, it's something that we've taken on within our roles, which we wouldn't have normally done, and it's just wherever partners have sort of suggested, oh, we could do with one here, or there's a specific cohort there that we think we need support, then we'll just sort of work with partners and sort of look at venues and see if it's possible to have something locally for those people. And one of our regular stallholder providers is Severn Trent Water. So the team that come along do go through, will do a little assessment with residents and look at the water bills and offer those schemes that I think Karen you mentioned as well. So that is quite useful. People find that stand quite useful.
That's really interesting. I probably not come across those before. So sorry, can you maybe tell a little bit more about who else is in those events? Then that'd be really useful.
So it all depends. It can vary. So we've got sort of regular often the citizens advice will be there, and then we've got, if it's local food bank support, talking therapies as well for sort of mental welfare and support. So they often come. We've got our Notts County Council benefits team as well, Severn Trent Water. And then it can vary with each area. Obviously there may be different sort of local partners that get involved. So I think we had conversations before with Katie Brown way back in sort of several months ago, but I think at that point there was enough support. So it's really looking at who, it's a joint sort of effort. So looking at what partners in that specific area may be beneficial. Also having Spire libraries for for courses that people might need to do to get back into work. So there's sort of, it's a little bit wider than just the cost of living. So there's that mental health and support as well, and practical skills. But that's something we can sort of draw up a list. We've got a definitive list, but we can look at that and sort of add in or make it, sort of tailor it to the area really and the need of the residents.
So do your team set up the events?
Yes. So what we'll do is we'll work with, we'll have a look at sort of where the area is, what the venue is the most important thing. See what venue is, keeping the costs as low as possible. So we've got a little bit of budget, so we'll offer sort of teas, coffees for free, and then obviously some, you know, we've done one where we've had hot soups, we've had some where we've just had tea and biscuits. Obviously the Macmillan one was cake, so that was tagged onto there, so we can have a look at some refreshments. And then we once we've got the venue set and a date, it usually takes sort of several weeks from the date of the discussions, sort of 6 to 7 weeks, and then we've got our internal comms that we can use, and obviously every partners have got their comms as well on Facebook, we'll just get the message out there. So the stall holders, so for example outside, the benefits team are used to doing these events, so they know this, you know, they know the process, they know how it all kind of comes together. So yeah, often we've I mean it varies, but we've had sort of between 30 to 60 residents coming along. And usually if it's tagged onto something, we find that obviously we've got the footfall there, and we've done them at various locations, so it can be community centres. We had one at a marketplace because we knew that that's where sort of the elderly residents may go to for their shopping, so we had sort of a market stall there. We were able to have the charity store for free, and we got the sort of town council were involved in there as partners as well, and we had one of the partners was able to offer sort of some food as she was, you know, as a cook. So all partners sort of bring their own little bit of expertise to it, and then together we just run it and keep the budget really minimum, but we can still achieve it.
Thank you. That's really useful to know. Thank
Yeah.
you, Lydia.
You're welcome.
Anybody else want to come in and add anything or any questions for Lydia? No. Okay. Thank you. So probably into any other business now. 24 minutes past 10. We're definitely into any other business. Anybody else? No. Okay, thank you. Any closing pearls of wisdom from you, Steve?
No, other than just to thank everyone for the work they do, particularly all our voluntary community sector volunteers, and covering over Christmas and the New Year, and wish you and yours all the very best for Christmas and the New Year.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks,
Yes.
Steve. Safe back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you everybody for coming on this morning. Always really useful. Steve and I'll look at dates, and we'll set another one probably I would think end of January, early February time, by the time we come together again, and we'll review, unless obviously something major happens, and then we'll reconvene earlier in January. Thank you. Enjoy your days, everybody. Have a great Christmas if I don't see you before.
Cheers,
Thanks,
Becky.
Becky.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Merry
Bye.
Christmas.